This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live.
Hello and welcome to the Twilight Show. My guest today is an educator based in Egypt, Hala Al-Matari. Hala is an experienced teacher trainer and academic director and a published novelist. We will be talking about her journey as a teacher and her work as a teacher educator in today's show.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live. Tune in at ttradio.org, or to join in the conversation, download the Podbean app and search Teachers Talk Radio. Follow the hashtag TTRadio. Tune in, talk it out with Teachers Talk Radio.
Welcome to the Twilight Show, everyone. I'm Graham Stanley, speaking to you live from Mexico City. As I mentioned in the introduction, on today's show, I'll be talking to Hala Al-Matari, based in Egypt, and she'll be talking about her journey in education with a special focus on teacher development. Hala is a certified teacher trainer and English as foreign language instructor who holds both the Cambridge University Trainer qualifications. She's trained over 900 teachers and taught more than 3,000 learners over the past 7 years, and she currently works as an academic director at an organization called 4Skills. As a teacher trainer, Hala used to run CELTA-based teacher training sessions and workshops for both novice and experienced teachers to help them develop, gain skills and confidence as educators. She has observed lessons and identified teachers' strengths and weaknesses, and she also provides feedback, advice, and individual coaching for teachers. Hala also collaborates with different teachers and teacher trainers and webinars to help inspire teachers all over the world. Teaching, training, and developing teachers is her passion, and she aims to leave an impact not only with the teachers she trains, but also with the students they teach. As well as being an educator, Hala is a novelist with 3 novels so far published in 2014, 2016, and 2007. She's currently writing her 4th novel, which she is expecting to have published in 2023, later in the year. I'll be talking to Hala about all of this and more after the Teachers Talk Radio news.
It's time for a fresh start to language learning. Pearson new student-centered French, German and Spanish 2024 GCSEs cater to the needs of all learners, regardless of their background, ability or reason for studying. Rooted in learned language knowledge, their assessments are transparent and accessible, allowing all students to showcase their language skills. Through inclusive and relatable content, the new Pearson EdXL MFL GCSEs build a shared cultural capital that helps students develop an understanding of and appreciation for the wider world. Find out more at go.pearson.com/MFL GCSE 24.
This is Teachers Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News.
BBC News reports on GCSE results and the impact resits in English and Maths could have on post-16 providers. According to figures on the news website, over 160,000 pupils in England received grade 3 or below in Maths, whilst 172,000 failed English language. The number of pupils not achieving grade 4 in English language is highest for a decade. The Association of Colleges has estimated that the extra GCSE resits could cost around £16 million for the year, and highlighted the yo-yo effect the pandemic has had on resits, making planning a huge challenge. Julie McCulloch of Education Union ASCL said resits were demoralising for students and reform of English and Maths qualifications was badly needed. Last year, only 20% of those retaking a Maths GCSE achieved grade 4 or above. The BBC also reported on GCSE pass rates in England, Wales and Northern Ireland as falling. The drop was steepest in England, but in Wales and Northern Ireland, grades were always meant to be higher. Analysis on the news website also indicates that in England, the gap between regions with lowest and highest proportions of GCSE passes has grown, and that state schools had a steeper fall in pass rates than in private schools. Schools Week features a story on A-level results and the widening attainment gap between North and South. According to data published on its website, the North East now has the lowest proportion of A-star and A grades, lower than pre-pandemic levels, at 22%. At the same time, London and the South East have recorded the biggest rises when compared to 2019. Labour's Shadow Minister said the results showed the failure of the government's levelling up agenda. The article discusses a range of factors which could contribute to the disparity across the best and worst performing regions, including existing long-term deprivation exacerbated by the pandemic, food insecurity made worse by the current cost of living crisis, and more usual factors such as attendance, device access, and the use of catch-up schemes. Full details can be found on the Schools Week website. The Guardian also takes a look at academic outcomes for pupils, this time through the lens of those referred to social services during childhood. It states that data suggests these pupils are twice as likely to fail GCSE Maths and English than other pupils. From a 3-year period, found 53% of teens who had been referred to social care did not achieve a grade 4 pass in both the GCSE subjects. This is in contrast to 24% in those not subject to a referral. The analysis was carried out by the charity Action for Children. It is the first study to examine referral rather than just those who receive support. Around 318,000 children a year are referred to social care, although many do not meet thresholds to receive support. The Guardian also featured comments from school leaders on the impact high levels of absence and poor mental health of pupils have had on outcomes for some. Many cited a lack of formal support for pupils and their families, contributing to further strains on school staff as they tried to plug gaps usually filled by other services such as social care and the NHS. Following on from its examination of regional disparity in academic outcomes across different regions, Schools Week also reports on proposals for elite sixth forms being given the go-ahead. The Eton Star 16 to 19 free schools, a collaboration between Eton College and Star Academies, will open in Dudley, Teesside and Oldham. This is part of the 15 new free schools announced by government in the last week. The aim is to improve education standards and get more pupils from the North and Midlands to Oxbridge. The Sixth Form Colleges Association has, however, warned that more sixth forms could lead to existing high-performing provision being unnecessarily disrupted. Eton College will provide financial and extracurricular support through its partnership with STAR. Education Secretary Gillian Keegan commented on the 15 new schools, saying, "We want to make more good school places available to families." The 15 schools also include 2 new university technology colleges, the first to be approved in 5 years, and a Brit School North to be opened in Bradford. The sixth form sector has reacted to the new plans, saying that in the 55 education investment areas, there are already enough colleges and school sixth forms in the areas to meet need. This has been your Teachers Talk Radio News with Joe Fox.
So welcome back, everyone, and a warm welcome in particular to my special guest, Hala Al-Madari. How are you today, Hala?
I'm fine. How about you?
I'm very well, thank you.
All right.
Yeah, it's a nice day here in Mexico City. How about the weather where you are?
Well, currently in Egypt, it's hot, but it's not like as hot as it used to. So yeah, we're surviving, but it's such a beautiful country. Have you been here before?
I have. I've been to Egypt twice. I had the pleasure of going there once for tourism.
Okay.
The usual things, of course, but then I also went to Cairo for work for a week. So
All
I
right.
had, I remember one of the most amazing experiences I had actually was I went to see a Beatles cover in
Okay.
a little jazz club in Cairo. It was amazing. It was like fantastic.
Okay. That's interesting. Was it like in Zamalek or something? The
Um,
place.
I can't remember exactly where it was. To be honest, my trainees had come from all over the region, and
Oh,
some of them had not been able to see live music because of where they were living and working for so long, that they said to me during the teacher training session, look, we're going to go and see this Beatles cover band because we're desperate to see live music.
okay.
And so I with them, so I had no idea what I was getting myself in for,
Okay.
but it was
Right.
wonderful.
Okay,
Anyway,
that's good to
so so Hal, I usually start by asking my guests to talk about how they became involved in education. So what was it that attracted you to become a teacher? How did you get started?
Well, I'd say that it was a big fat coincidence. I was in this phase back in 2016 where I didn't really know what to do with my career. And when I was a college student, I used to give tutor my colleagues.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, that was like volunteering. So I had like some good delivery skills and people would listen to me. But I haven't really thought of like education or teaching English as a second language. So
Right.
one day I was like talking with my cousin. He was like, "Hello, why don't you like be a teacher?" And I was like, "I don't think that I would be able to tolerate kids." And I remember him saying, "Who mentioned anything about kids teach adults?" And I was like, "Okay, I can live with that." So I started applying in centers here in Egypt that would actually teach English as a language, and then I joined the training. And during the training, actually, I thought that, wow, teacher training. But I knew that early for me to think about it because I didn't really start the teaching career yet. But yeah, this is how it all started. It was a big fat coincidence.
Wow, I was actually, I was going to move on to asking you about how you took the leap from being a teacher to become a teacher educator. And it
Mhm.
doesn't sound like it was a gradual change. It sounds like it was something you identified from the outset that you'd be interested in. Is that right?
Exactly. Because I saw the teachers, the teacher trainer that was there back then, and I was like, wow, such a charismatic person. He had incredible delivery skills, great time management, and he was able to um, control the class perfectly and give clear instructions. And we were able to his lead. So I was
Yeah.
like, you know what? Maybe by the end of this year, I would actually start this. But I knew back then, because we have to be realistic, you cannot be a teacher trainer if you don't have teaching experience.
Yeah.
I knew that I have to start as a teacher first, gain experience and knowledge, and then move comfortably to the teacher training department.
Of course, of course. So how long were you a teacher then? Was it just adults, as you said, that you taught English to?
Yes, and teenagers, I would say. And
Mm-hmm.
teenagers are not, you can control teenagers, I believe. So back then, my problem was like, oh, young learners, maybe I wouldn't be able to control them, because when you teach young learners, you teach the language and you teach discipline at the same time. And I was
Yeah.
concerned, when it comes to the latter. As a teacher, of course, you have your own concerns. So yeah, I worked for 1 year as a teacher, and then by the end of that year, I was promoted and I joined the teacher training department.
Oh wow! So only you became a teacher trainer after a year. That's really quick.
Yes, but of course I had some I didn't quit teaching. I had some classes going on. Sometimes, when you apply some new techniques or try to apply
Yeah.
something that you have recently learned, you have to apply this with students.
Yes.
So yeah.
And I'm impressed that you say that teenagers are quite easy to teach. My experience is that they can be quite a
Okay.
handful. But
Okay.
what age were the teenagers that you were teaching? Were they kind of
Like
towards
14 and
the?
above?
Oh, right, 14. Yeah, that can be quite
Yes.
the difficult age, but that wasn't
Yeah.
your experience.
Yeah.
Lucky you.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about your work at the moment as a teacher trainer, as a teacher educator? I'd love to hear about the kind of teacher training you do.
All right, so my teacher training experience, as I told you, it started in 2017, and I still give like teacher training sessions, of course, but my main job right now, ever since the beginning of this year, is joining the academic directing field.
Hmm.
And I believe that that was like a gradual, natural progress. Teacher and then teacher trainer, and then you joined the academic department or education management. So with the teacher training, I do some freelancing every now and then. That was like a full-time job for 5 years
Yeah.
until January 2023. I had to join the academic department as an education management manager.
And where is it that you work? You work with in state school education or in the private sector?
All right, so what I do with the teacher trainings is that I train, of course, novice teachers who like to join the teaching career, and also experienced teachers. It doesn't matter, from schools, universities, centers, because like teacher training is like everybody can learn. It doesn't really matter where they are, but what really matters is the age of the people that we're teaching.
Yeah.
So I got people joining my trainings from schools, from universities, like centers that would teach English as a second language, and of course novice teachers.
Right, but generally, have the teachers done any kind of teacher training qualification, or they studied to be a teacher before they reach you, or are you taking them right at the beginning before they have any experience of teaching at all?
Well, it doesn't matter. I mean, I've trained experienced people before. I've trained people who got the TEFL, the TESOL, and I managed to add to them a lot, because the teacher training that I provide is totally CELTA based, and it's considered to be like a mini CELTA preparation for those who are like who want to get the CELTA one day. So the training is designed to suit everybody's needs, whether they were novice teachers or experienced teachers, because right. I take them from practice to theory, sometimes from theory to practice, so everybody like gets to benefit from the training by the end of the day.
Okay, great. And when it comes to teacher development, do you have a special interest that you focus on, or is it more general teacher training that you're involved in?
Okay, when it comes to the teacher's development, of course, it's really essential for us to have workshops and to join training every now and then. But then once the training is over, what do the teacher do? And that's basically what I do with my staff, who actually work with me as teachers. I make sure to have, extended workshops, observe their lessons, for example, add more to them, give them many resources for them to maybe check or watch, because learning it's like a journey. You can never stop learning, and it doesn't matter if you have a certificate or not. If you decide to become an English teacher, you have to make sure that you're constantly developed by going the extra mile, observing other classes, getting certificates, etc. So the staff that I'm working with right now, I just make sure that the journey keeps going by, as I told you, observing one another's class, attending webinars. Sometimes I would actually run workshops if I notice that a certain teacher has a problem, for example, with the teacher talk time. They keep like talking a lot. We have to talk about this, some ideas.
And what kind of issues do you notice that teachers struggle with the most in your teacher training workshops? Is it teacher talking time, or is it other aspects?
Oh, there are, of course, other aspects and other problematic areas. I would say contextualizing grammar lessons, that would be the top. Because some teachers believe that if I start the lesson telling them, okay, guys, today we're going to talk about the present simple, and we use the present simple to, talk about our daily routine, habits, facts, and here's the rule. Now open the book and answer some questions. That's the problem that I'm facing every single day, because this is not the ideal. way to explain grammar. You want the students to, get exposed to a meaningful context where where you contextualize the lesson, maybe through a story, a text, a situation, so that, digesting the idea of grammar, because let's face it, nobody likes grammar, nobody likes to be tested constantly. So you don't want to make their life more miserable by talking about the rule first. I mean, talking about the rule is essential, of course, but it should be the last thing to be mentioned, if you know what I'm talking about. So that's number one, sadly. Contextualizing grammar lessons, they always go with the very academic way of explaining grammar, and sometimes translation, which is catastrophic, using the first word. So yeah, that's one area. Of course, the teacher's talking time, and the students' talking time, they manage to they tend to lecture the students, sadly. And some students believe, and maybe that's because when I listen to the teacher speaking language the whole time, I'm learning. But we don't learn by listening, do we?
Not really. I think,
Yes.
well, you can learn something by listening, but definitely there's a lot of other ways of doing it, of course.
Absolutely. Yes.
So do you find that the majority of the teachers who come to you have this sort of traditional kind of grammar-based and even grammar translation-based, as you mentioned, approach?
Yes, and it's not even I mean, I would understand this area if the person applying for the job or the person that I'm observing is a novice teacher. Yeah, that's understandable, because maybe they don't know better. But the problem is, I meet, and that's every single day, I meet certified teachers, and once it's demo time, they do not apply the great approaches that they have learned, and they go back to the traditional academic ways.
Right. And does this come from, do you think, the way that they learned languages at school?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's one of the factors, yes.
Is that still sort of happening at the moment in the school system, the kind of a traditional grammar translation-based way of teaching languages?
Absolutely, yes. You see this every single day. And they just, in my point of view, they just get the certificates to be certified. That's it. They want the which is kind of shallow for me, in my opinion. You get the certificate to benefit from that certificate, and then you start applying the approaches and the methods that you have learned in your classes properly. But then when it's demo time, I just keep asking them, why didn't you use the text-based, for example? Where's the situational approach? Why did you go with this traditional way? And the answer is never convincing. That's the problem.
Right. So you find that, is it that you find that you're trying to persuade teachers to get out of that comfort zone of that way that they're used to approaching the teaching of languages?
Exactly. And to be fully honest with you, some teachers, they take the excellent or the amazing certificates out there to become better teachers. But then once they start applying for other places or other schools, the other schools follow different approaches. So the teachers end up not using the approaches that they have learned. And by time, of course, you forget the things that you learned. So they forget everything that they learned.
That sounds a shame. So I think, I mean, is there any, I'm guessing to kind of change that system would take quite a lot of work and time.
Absolutely. That's the problem.
Yeah. Okay. And so other professional practices, do you think teachers need to develop them in Egypt?
They need to practice a lot, because knowing the theory, for example, behind things is fantastic, but you have to get your hands dirty. You have to have many practices with real students, get observed by professional tutors or educators, get feedback and work on feedback. That's the best thing that any educator would do in order to develop, practice, get feedback, observe, for example, the top teachers or the seniors, in order to maybe steal a technique or two into your classes and start applying them gradually. So yeah, that'll be it.
Wow. And do you find that most of the training you do is in El Cairo, or do you travel to train as well, or train online to other countries, other places in
Okay.
Egypt?
Well, I would say that most of my teacher training would be in Egypt here, but ever since Corona and since we started the Zoom thing, it actually allowed me to train people from different countries around the world. I haven't done the traveling yet, to be honest, but yeah, that's in the agenda one day. But ever since I created an online teacher training agenda, it allowed me to train and meet different incredible teachers from different countries, whether they were Arabs or not. So the online training has given me this great opportunity.
Wonderful. And how about when you go outside of El Cairo to train teachers in other parts of Egypt, do you find differences in their experience or their approach?
All right. So when it comes to other people from different cities other than Cairo, I haven't dealt with them face to face. It was online, and of course I have noticed differences because of the tradition, the background, their expectations, and I would say it was really challenging for me to face or deal with, because that was not the comfort zone anymore, but I had to go with it. And I have noticed that sadly in some of the cities here in Egypt, they didn't really focus on the teacher's language proficiency. That was a big fact. I was shocked when I knew that it actually happens in some places where some teachers would be teachers at school, and the proficiency wouldn't be more than A2, I would say. It was really challenging for me to run the teacher training, because I had to grade my language. I had to speak slower. I had to let go of that fluent American accent that I have, because they somehow they were unable to follow. But they were extremely hardworking, extremely passionate. They really appreciated the opportunity of learning something, developing themselves as teachers, learning new approaches, new techniques. They were they were willing to learn, passionate. They accepted feedback. They worked on feedback, but the only obstacle was the language.
Right. Yeah, I think that story that you've just told about teachers and the teaching, for example, English, and not having a high level of English is found in lots of places, basically.
Absolutely, yes.
And I think it's kind of, from what I can tell, it comes from the fact that it's very difficult to find enough teachers with a sufficient level of English to be able to teach. The demand far outstrips the supply of English teachers in many places. I'm guessing that's the same in Egypt.
Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah. And what about things like that situation has developed in countries that I know of, for example, because the social status of the English teacher in many cases isn't very high, and so a lot of or perhaps the actual salary that the teacher earns as an English teacher isn't high enough for them, and they find that working if they have a high level of English, they can work outside of the school system or the education and earn or have a sort of higher social status. Is that the case in Egypt as well, do you think?
Well, I would partially agree with what you're saying, because I think that teachers are suffering. It's not only in Egypt, it's not only in one country. It's teachers are, I would say, underrated when it comes to a lot of things, and a lot of advantages, to be honest, including the salary, of course.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would actually agree with that. I mean, some places here in Egypt, they would actually they would pay well comparing to the 90% out there, but from what I see, and from like a personal experience, I would say that yeah, some would actually prefer to travel to different countries for the same exact reasons that you have mentioned. You know, the position, for example, the place that they will be working with, and of course the salary as well. So they tend to, for example, if they work in a specific complex in Egypt, they would prefer to work in like at the same X, but in a different country, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, yeah. And what about is it for example, do children in the school system in Egypt, are they obliged to learn English, or can they decide languages to learn? And what age, if they do learn English, what age do they usually start?
Okay, I would say they would start like from kindergarten, and it's a must to learn the English. They are obliged to. It's the second language, and in some international schools, they would actually teach a third language as well, French, German, like the different countries there. However, again, it depends on the school itself, and some standards of living. Like some schools, for example, they would teach you English, but the teacher, for example, does not have the proper language proficiency for teachers. So they end up, you know, teaching the kids with that humble English, and then the kids, of course, they would learn the language with that negative, let's say, way or manner. But again, English, it's one of the main subjects that young learners have to study here in Egypt. But again, if the school is really fancy, I would say, or in an international school, yeah, they would pay great attention to learning the language ever since like starting from a very, very young age.
Right. Okay. And what about your own development as a teacher educator? Do you find you spend a lot of time trying to keep up to date? What kind of things do you do to keep on top of things that are changing, etc.?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I make sure to like read a lot, ask for feedback, get myself, you know, enrolled in a teaching or teacher training course. And I try to make this balance. Like, for example, when I took the CELTA back in 2019, I made this promise that I will be squeezing every single benefit out of the CELTA in my classes, and even in my teacher training programs that I do. So from 2019, 2021, I was doing this. And in 2021, I decided, okay, I'm ready to explore different horizons. I believe that I'm ready to the next step when it comes to like certificates or learning something new. That's why I got myself enrolled with the teacher, train the trainer course with Cambridge. That was again in 2021. So right now, I believe that it's time for me to, you know, learn something or get myself enrolled in another educational program, maybe related to the education management, for example, or the Delta. Because again, it's not about how many certificates you have by the end of the day. It's about what you do with those certificates. What is the added value? How did you benefit from these certificates? Practically speaking, you know, delivering the information to other people, others with the knowledge that you have, leaving an impact, and of course, getting more money, right?
Of course.
Yes.
Interesting, yeah. And when it comes to being a teacher educator, being a teacher trainer, what qualities do you think are needed? So what does a teacher educator needs? To what extent does a teacher educator needs to be a coach, a mentor, a trainer, a leader, for example?
Okay. So of course there are like certain skills, traits, and knowledge that we have to be aware of as teachers, as coaches, as you mentioned, as teacher trainers. And of course it all starts like with the first step, being a good teacher. And being a good teacher, as I told you earlier, you have to have certain traits. You have to be friendly, but not a friend. You have to be like charismatic, confident, creative. You should know how to build great rapport with your students, have good communication skills, time management, delivery skills. So again, traits, skills, and of course the knowledge. You have to know the basics when it comes to teaching. Grammar, vocabulary, for example, like to be able to differentiate as a teacher, if English is your second language, to differentiate between the tenses properly, because this is a great responsibility you have to study. And you have to be aware of, the mistakes correction, giving feedback. So again, traits, skills, and knowledge. So it would be the same exact thing if that teacher wants to join, for example, the coaching or maybe the supervision department that starts supervising other people. Now it's your role. Like when you were a teacher, you used to have like some research about what are the different types of students and learners, something that you have to look to search for. But as a trainer, for example, or as a supervisor or a mentor, now you have to take this to another level. Now you have to search for what are the different types of teachers and how to deal with them. How would you give feedback for teachers, for example? Like the teachers are with ego, I would say. And you have to be very careful and very smart giving them feedback, perhaps using the sandwich technique, starting with the great stuff that you have noticed, and then moving gradually to the problematic areas, and then finally talking about the great stuff that you have noticed with that teacher. So again, there's this talkative teacher, there's this troublemaker, there's this Mr. Know-it-all teacher. Similar to the students, I would say, because you have Mr. Know-it-all as a student, right?
Yes, of course, definitely. I'd love to hear a little bit more. You talk a little bit more about those types of teachers that you've come across. So the know-it-all teacher. I'm guessing this is the teacher who doesn't admit that they don't know anything to the students or even to the teacher trainer. Is that the case?
Yes, that's absolutely the case. And you have to be smart because they want to be appreciated, but they never ask for that. So it's psychological. It's a psychological, in my opinion. So you have to thank them whenever they give you like some insights or share their opinions. Thank them, appreciate the input that they add. But then by the end of the day, as a teacher trainer, you have to add. You have to come with this, or maybe let's say present this new approach that you know for sure that this teacher doesn't know. I mean, why is he attending your training in the first place, right?
Of course, they should be open to learn something from you.
Absolutely.
From the others. So what about the other types of teachers you mentioned? The teacher who talks too much. How do you approach that?
Yeah, well, of course, it starts also with thanking them, appreciating the input that they add to the classroom. But the thing is, the problematic areas here would be maybe wasting the time of the session, or maybe the other colleagues wouldn't have like enough time to participate. So you have to play it smart with that individual. So when you notice that, yeah, this is the third time for them to exceed the minute, with a nice smile on the face, Alex, all right, so how about you answer this question and you have 1 minute, Alex. So Alex would start speaking for 1 minute. And in case they exceeded that 1 minute, you would actually smile and say, okay, that was incredible. Let's see if Mohammed has a different opinion here. So yeah, like these are the techniques that you have to learn by time so that you keep the classroom managed as you expect.
Yes, and I guess you're hoping that through those examples, the teacher will be able to apply the same kind of techniques to their own classroom rather than talking at the students.
Absolutely works with the teacher as well.
Yeah. What about other types? So we've talked about two types of teachers, the know-it-all teacher and the talkative teacher. Do you find teachers who are very underconfident come to you? How would you approach that, helping them?
Yes, all about like boosting their confidence and not like putting them under the spotlight, because you will be crushing them. However, as teachers, we shouldn't be that shy. I mean, there are some shy teachers who manage to get out of the comfort zone. But there are some other teachers who cannot step out of the comfort zone. And once they stand or maybe start explaining, you would notice that they are stuttering, they're shaking. You can barely hear them. So we have two different categories here. A category that you can work with, and that's from experience. And when it comes to the category that you can develop and work with, yeah, you have to approach them. You have to boost their confidence. Maybe you can pair them up with another talkative teacher. Gradually, like motivate them every now and then, praise them every now and then, so that they're stepping out of the comfort zone and they're working on feedback properly. So that's when it comes to the category that you can work with or work on.
Sounds good. And have there been what has been, if I can ask you, what has been the most sort of difficult experience as a teacher trainer that you've come across, and how did you overcome it?
I would say like meeting different people from like different backgrounds. Like for example, it's only one example that I always share here because yeah, it was really, really challenging. I remember in one of the teacher training courses that I was running, there was this young lady who was attending the training, and she was a very good teacher, I would say. She worked on feedback. Her techniques were incredible, and she was like she knew exactly what to do. Like I would start showing a certain approach, and then the next day she would come up following the same approach perfectly. But the only problem that lady was facing is that she made many pronunciation and grammar mistakes. So when it was my time, of course, to highlight these areas, she didn't really take it well. And I just told her, like, I don't remember her name, but let's say that her name was Sarah. Sarah, you're a great teacher, but you need to work on 1, 2, 3, 4. And then she started saying, no, I haven't done these mistakes. I don't make these mistakes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I just sensed that so I might have a problem here. And the problem is the training is a pass or fail. When I was like in that stage of my life, the training was a pass or fail, and there were some criteria that would help the teacher to pass or fail, and one of them was the language inaccuracies. So sadly, by day 4, I delivered the news, and she didn't she didn't accept that well. And then she said that I rejected her because of her clothes.
Of her clothes, really?
Yeah. So that was really, really, really hard for me to digest back then. And I mean, it disappointed me that she thought about it that way. So she thought that I discriminated, whatever, according to her standards, because she was like super conservative. Here some ladies here in Egypt, they cover up entirely, and there's absolutely nothing but that. But she thought that that's the reason you're doing this, because I'm a conservative lady.
Oh, really? So she was in. So there's two things there. I think maybe if you this is a good sort of take on it, is that she was in denial about the language errors, pronunciation mistakes that she was making, but also she had, maybe through her experience of being sort of criticized or aware of discrimination against her in the past, she was basically assuming that the reason why you were going to fail her was because of superficial aspects such as her dress, rather than the real reasons.
Absolutely. I mean, that was the case exactly. You know it. She was rejected from she was rejected when she applied to certain places, and they were like clear about it. We cannot accept you here because of the clothes or how conservative you are. So she thought that it's the same thing with me. And also, when she used to work in a certain place, the supervisors there never mentioned anything about her language. So she was shocked when she knew that from me.
That's interesting. That idea of, I mean, I think all teachers we need to become a lot more self-aware, don't we?
Absolutely.
To be able to understand. I mean, every teacher can improve, can be better, or teacher educator can be better as well.
Exactly.
We need to be open to change and to have people basically criticizing us to a certain extent, don't we? So if not, then we're never going to actually recognize where we need to develop and make and improve.
Sure, absolutely. That was the case. So I think that was the most challenging situation ever, because it was like personal, and she crossed her lines, giving that feedback to me. It was not like a decent way of expressing her anger. No, no, it wasn't.
It was quite a conflictive way of her reacting to feedback that you were given in good faith.
Exactly.
So
yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
You'll remember that question, right?
Which question?
You were about to say something, I think.
Oh yeah, I'll remember it.
Okay, so yeah, I think you meet different teachers every single day, and you shouldn't be expecting anything, to be honest. So you meet this teacher who's like way older than you, and whenever they step in the class and they see a 20-year-old maybe lady, or I'm 31 now, but I had my time when I was like 20 something as a teacher trainer, and having someone who's in late 40s or late 50s, and they used to like give you that look, oh my God, my trainer is a kid. So I used to have these looks every now and then, but it wasn't challenging, because once you're confident, knowledgeable, and you have your way when it comes to your delivery skills, nobody can utter a word, I would say. It depends on the knowledge that you have, how you deliver feedback, how confident you are. And it doesn't matter if you have someone who's younger or older than you. That I would say.
I think ageism is can be a real problem with in certain situations and stuff. Just as you say that there are older people who feel that they can't learn from younger people.
Yes.
It's definitely the case where you have teachers with a lot of experience. In theory, they have a lot of experience, but I always remember someone saying something like, instead of having 30 years experience in the classroom, year of experience repeated 30 times, which if you never try to develop as a teacher, if you never try to get better or try new things or try to understand how you can do things, how you can improve, then it's the case that you're just repeating the same sort of mistakes in a way, aren't you?
Exactly. Couldn't agree more.
And then, of course, you do also have, you see that generally with students and teachers, sometimes where you get an attitude problem. This is what to go back to teenagers, I've seen this in teenagers, where they think, what can I learn from you? You don't understand me and my generation kind of.
That's
I'm guessing,
the case, yeah.
I'm guessing you also see that as a teacher trainer. Sometimes, people
Absolutely.
coming in who are younger or older than you, or for what reason they're from a different background, and they have a kind of set idea, rather than being open-minded. That's probably one of the most difficult things to change, isn't it? To get people to sort of take a very different look at things that challenge their sort of set viewpoints about how life is.
Yes.
Yeah, fascinating. The question I was going to ask you, a little bit off the track, but back to that teacher that you had in your class who claimed you were criticizing, or you were giving her, or failing her because of the way she looked or the way she dressed. How did that work out? Did you just leave, and or were you able to persuade her? I'm imagining she just left. Is that right?
Of course she left, and I tried to have a decent conversation with her. I tried to reassure her, and she refused to even answer my call. And I just felt like, okay, so there's a misjudgment here. She kind of victimized herself. And I would clearly say that, yeah, she must have, like, she has been through a lot because, as I told you, she applied to different places and she was rejected for the same reason. So she thought that, yeah, I'm doing the same exact thing with her. She did not allow me to communicate with her. That's why it was super harsh for me, because other kids, when I have, you know, misunderstandings or any conflicts, we talk to each other, and things you know, you would finally reach a solution by the end of the day. As you mentioned, she left and she sent a big like a big fat email to the HR, and she CC'd me. And my response was, because it was like an unprofessional email, my response to that email was, like, I mentioned all the typos and all the grammar mistakes that she did in that email, and I replied, that was my response. I did not respond to anything that she like mentioned, or maybe any accusations, because it was too late for that. She didn't allow it to happen, like in a healthy manner. So my response was like replying back to the email, but mentioning every single typo, grammar mistake out there she mentioned. So yeah, she left, and I think that she still hates me until this very moment.
Yeah, that's a shame, isn't it? But there are
Yes.
some situations that sounds like one that, you know, you have to kind of just accept that the person isn't going to change their mind, and
Yes.
you have to then decide, you know, it's not worth the time or the effort to try and, or we have a limited amount of time and effort that we can spend on people, and if they're not able to sort of, you give them an opportunity to see what you think they need to do or change, and they can accept it or reject it. If they reject it, well, it's very difficult.
Exactly.
I think the important thing is as you said you've done, is to put the evidence in front of the person. Say, look, this is not my opinion. Just these are
Exactly.
look, this is the language you used, kind of thing. It's not how I, you know, I'm not. This is what I noticed.
Yes, it's never personal.
Yeah, it's kind of difficult when someone actually wants to take something personally, is it, in any kind of conflict. Okay, so I'm going to ask you now about your move into academic management. When was it that you kind of decided, this is an area I actually enjoy and think I have a lot to offer?
Well, it was like December, I would say December 2022. I was like, yeah, maybe I got some people reaching me, and they offered the position, and it was the first time for me ever to like work as an academic director of the education management. And I thought that, you know what, let's go for this. I think that this is an incredible scope. This is an incredible field that I can learn a lot from. I do love teacher training courses. It's like my true passion, but I felt like, yeah, it's the next logical and natural step in my career. I'll start in like January 2023, and this is like 9 months so far, I would say. So yeah, now thinking about it from I think about it from a different aspect. Like, now it's not about teacher developments anymore. It's about management, education management, talking to different departments, perhaps selecting the best candidates for the teaching position or the staff that I'll be working with, maybe choosing the right curricula for the place, creating a system from scratch. That was like a new challenge, and I found myself learning from like other people, other managers, and it worked so far. I think it's working well, but I feel like, yeah, it's the time for me to explore more when it comes or regarding the education management, and people recommended the Delta. It would help. So yeah, I believe that this is going to be the next step for the time being.
Okay, and what do you think you would say have been your biggest challenges over the course of the last year or so when you've been transitioning into academic management? What things have you think you've been challenged by?
I believe meeting different people or different managers from different backgrounds than mine or different visions than mine. So, sometimes you have like a very good friend at work, but you just disagree or maybe agree with their visions and missions, for example. So that's like the biggest challenge that I'm facing right now, is that I have to deal with different types of managers. See, so different types of students, different types of teachers, different types of managers. It was challenging, but what I do is that I never stop reading. Like, for example, how to deal with, for instance, a teacher, for example, or a manager that doesn't communicate well, or a teacher that really communicates well, or maybe someone who's you always disagree with regarding managerial decisions. What to do, what not to do. That this is the biggest challenge for the time being. Other than that, I find myself strongly relying on my experience as a teacher trainer. Somehow, when it comes to the education, like the education itself, when it comes to the best thing for the staff in order to like create balance. I want staff that I'm working with to feel comfortable, not to feel overwhelmed, because, as teachers, it's super easy for us to be overwhelmed the whole time. So what are the best working hours for me to provide? How about the breaks? How about the vacations, maybe? How about the rate? How about the students themselves that they're dealing with? How about the curricula that they deal with? So that's what I try to do, is to create the best teaching environment and to make the teachers happy, because once you make the teachers happy, the students will definitely be happy and grateful as well.
Of course. And do you find there's a lot of things that are similar to between teaching, teacher training, and academic management? There's a lot of crossover areas, or does it require very different skill sets to be an academic manager?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I found myself strongly relying on the previous experiences that I had. And I just sometimes I find myself thinking as a teacher, not as a manager. If I were a teacher and this and that happened, how would I take this? What's the reaction? So, of course, there are a lot of similarities, as I told you, and I try to learn from maybe previous mistakes that I've seen with different companies, or different experiences with different companies, and do the polar opposite with the staff that I'm working with. Because I find thinking as a teacher sometimes, and it helps making helps making a lot of decisions, to be honest. The only differences, or some of the differences, would be, as I told you, is maybe having like different meetings regarding different projects, for example, that didn't used to happen in the past, because I'm involved in the training thing the whole time. But now it's different, because I get to decide now. I get to for example, choose the best curriculum, whether it's ESP or general curriculum for the teachers to work with. I get to talk to students and get feedback regarding several things. And from the feedback, I try to create something better for them and for the teachers as well. That'll be it.
Great. And I heard you talk about being involved in teacher recruitment as well.
Yes, exactly.
How has that been? Kind of how has that been, and what do you look for when you're trying to decide whether a teacher is good for the job, really, apart from, of course, the obvious that they can speak good English?
Absolutely, yeah. So basically, the second interview is always with me, and I get to observe a lesson that they were asked to demonstrate. And according to the lesson, I get to assess certain criteria, the delivery skills, the approaches that they have used. And yeah, of course, the language is going to be one of them. Their personality, their character, and are they good with the online gamification world or not? Because it's really essential for you to have this background if you want to apply as an online English language teacher. So I get to act as a student and perhaps mention or bring up real life to see how would that person handle the situation, because we shouldn't be teaching only. We should be able to build rapport, motivate the student, handle the inquiries with confidence. And even when you don't have the answer to that question, you shouldn't be giving any answer. You have to be 100% sure that this is the accurate or this is the correct answer. And according to the assessment, I would actually determine if this person is ready to join us or not. And if they're not ready, I always make sure to give them feedback and ask them to reapply again.
Right. Yeah. I've done quite a bit of teacher recruitment before, and actually teachers working online as well. And one of the things that that I found was actually the online aspect of things. You can pretty much teach the teachers to do quite well, but it's actually their teaching skills. If they don't have the basics of their teaching skills, if they don't come across being a good communicator, for example, if they're not clear with their the way that they present their thoughts in response to questions, that's the most difficult thing, because that's the thing that's going to confuse the students, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yes, I totally agree with you.
Yeah. You mentioned gamification. I'd love to hear more about how you use gamification in your educational environment. Do you use it as a teacher trainer, or is it just you're looking at helping teachers use it with their students?
Well, I would say like both. If it's like an online teacher training course, I make sure to gamify like most of the things that I show to this, because I want them to apply these things in their actual classes. I make sure that I provide or I give them all the resources or the links, websites that they can use in order to, for example, gamify a certain activity or task, a control practice, like a free practice even, or maybe an icebreaker, for instance. So that's what I do, or if it's an online teacher training course. And when it comes to like actual teachers, like this is like an example that happened last week. I had this incredible teacher who applied, and I got to like observe her lessons so that I would accept her, like make her join us. And the approaches were incredible. Her teacher's personality was great, and she was creative. She used the needed approaches that I asked for. But the only problem is that she kept share screening handouts. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but if it's an online class, you have to have this different like different varieties, right? It shouldn't be like a handout every single time. Okay, you know what, fill in the gaps, you know what, choose the correct answer, you know what, do this. So I mentioned that in the post observation feedback, and I told her, yeah, everything is well. I need to see you again, and I need to see how you'd actually gamify this lesson so that it would like match or suit the needs of a class. So you have to like consider that and put that in mind. And I would see you next week. So she was open to feedback, and let's see how she would gamify the lesson.
Okay, so have that coming up next week then.
Yes.
Oh, great. Well, I it sounds like she could be a very good candidate. So I hope he has adapted it.
Yes.
So Hala, what about advice you would give to teachers who would like to do either teacher education or academic management? What advice would you give to them?
I would say they have to read a lot, because sometimes you find this incredible teacher, but once he joins a managerial position, they fail, sadly. maybe because they were not ready, they haven't done enough research, they haven't explored, they haven't learned something. So they make incredible teachers, but they have to make sure that they are ready for leadership roles. They are ready to deal with different category management. You're not dealing with students anymore. So you have to explore different horizons as an educator. So I would say research. They have to do a lot of research. They have to read. They have to follow people who leave impact, from similar positions. And it's never too late to keep getting certificates, or maybe getting themselves enrolled in some beneficial courses regarding maybe the education management, whatever that is. They have to be willing to learn constantly, and they have to keep asking people. So they have this question in mind: learn from the people who have experience, because it's when you ask somebody who has experience, they would help you a lot, regarding making many decisions, because you learn from the best.
Very good advice. Thank you.
You're
And I'd like to finish our conversation by exploring a little bit and asking you a little bit more about your experience as a novelist, which you mentioned. So
Yes.
How did you start? Is that something you've always wanted to do? How did you start, and what kind of fiction do you write?
Well, it started at a very young age. I used to write stories and show the stories to my friends, and sometimes poetry. I'm a bookworm, I would say, so I love reading. And sometimes when you read a lot, you develop this writer inside you. So that's exactly what happened with me. So when I was a sophomore or something at college, I wrote the first novel, and it was romance. That the genre, I would say, it was romance. Because as a college student, that's the safest option that you would go with, romance. And then I thought, you know what, this shouldn't be shared only with the family and friends. I have to make strangers read this. So I talked to the family, and I told them, I'm ready to publish this book. So I had some people to talk to, and they they reviewed and they read the novel, and it was published in 2014. That's the first one. And then 2 years later, I published the second one, and it was like a drama. It was a romance. And the third one, it's also a drama. I would say drama, but it's a little bit controversial when it comes to the Arabs, or the Arab society. And I'm currently working on the fourth. So wish me luck.
So how could you explain a little bit more about what you said about it being controversial? In what ways is it controversial?
All right. So you know that the Arabs, of course, they come from different backgrounds. We have traditions, we have cultures. So when it comes to some views and point of views regarding women, women are some of the women are victims here. So I had to fight these ideas without being a feminist, because I'm not. So that was really challenging for me to talk about some controversial talks related to women and their relationships, without being called a feminist, or me hating men and all of these things, because I don't. So yeah, it's controversial when it comes to the Arab, to the Egyptian, to the Emirati, to the Saudi Arabian society.
Right.
So you have to read between the lines in order to understand that. Yeah, it makes sense.
I think, from what I know, I think there are certain aspects of different countries. There's quite a lot of differences between different countries, different Arab societies, aren't there, as far as their treatment of women can range from the more strict to the more liberal.
Exactly.
And is that what you're exploring in the novel?
Yes, that's what I'm exploring in the novel, is that when a woman make a certain mistake, it doesn't make her a bad person because we're all human beings. This woman was a kid one day and she used to watch a lot of cartoons. She might be one of your friends at school playing with you in the play yard. So stop judging because you're not her. And
Right.
people forget that we're humans and we make mistakes, and they start attacking one another and judging one another. And sadly, those people who attack usually make similar mistakes, and that's crazy. That's really crazy. So they're suddenly saints and they start attacking and accusing other people. But if you know like 1%, like if you know what they do in the dark, you'd be surprised, because why are you accusing her? Why are you accusing them? You make the same mistakes, but the only difference here is that nobody knew about your mistake yet.
Yeah. And as a woman who has become an academic manager, who is involved in teacher training, who, from what you've said, has been able to rise quite quickly to be able to have an influential position, do you find you have any pushback because of that, or has it not been a problem in your professional life?
You mean as a woman?
As a woman, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, of course, it has been the case, and I've noticed this tremendously when I started the first book, for example. So I told you the first book was like romance, the genre, and then people say, yeah, that's her life story. She's talking about herself. So why did you assume that? It doesn't make any sense. If I talk about two people, it doesn't mean that the protagonist, for example, is me. So that was the beginning. And then once I started, sharing my opinion about certain things and trying to fight some of the toxic traits that happen, or maybe that are seen in Arab households, for example, they had different interpretation about this matter, believing that you want women to take over. You're trying to make the man a weaker creature. You're trying to make women stronger creatures, and that's not the case, because men and women have different responsibilities, and I believe that they shouldn't be equal. I mean, a man is a man and a woman is a woman, and that's my opinion. And everybody should be held responsible. Everybody has his own responsibilities and duties, and it doesn't necessarily mean, whenever I talk about the women's right, is that I'm trying to make people ignore men's rights. So I people attack a lot, especially on Instagram. Whenever I write something for women, they just keep calling me a feminist every now and then, and it's really sad, to be honest, because I'm talking about the common sense, and not like men deserve respect, and men and women deserve respect as well. But once I mention women, they just keep attacking me right away. So this is when it comes to, this is when it comes to me as a novelist, as a writer. When it comes to me as a manager, I wouldn't say that it happens constantly, but sometimes, from previous experience in different companies, I just had this feeling that some people were trying to underestimate or maybe belittle my potential because I'm a woman. So whenever I don't follow a certain decision, or whenever I ask about, or maybe I wouldn't say debate, but sometimes it's really essential for me to understand the why. So whenever I ask for a why, they just didn't take it well.
Okay. Understand. And just one thing you mentioned, you said you're not a feminist. Is that term, you think, not something you embrace for reasons because it has negative context now, at least in your cultural experience, or is it just something you feel strongly about for other reasons?
Well, I believe that women, and that's my opinion, there's absolutely no need for them to be feminist if they are to talk about their rights and about the things that they deserve in the society, for example, or the community. There's nothing wrong with that. And I believe that the terminology, the term itself, doesn't make sense to me, because respecting anybody's rights, respecting anybody's humanity, this is life. It shouldn't be under any category, right? It shouldn't be like feminist, not feminist, shouldn't be. And some women, sadly, they just go beyond the extra mile when it comes to that term. And sadly, they are the same very women. So they keep shouting the whole time, we're equal, we can live without men, we're fully independent. But when it's war, nobody, you will not going to find any women outside. They're going to be inside their houses, freaked out and waiting for the men to do something. So that's the irony here. If there's something happened, for example, or they wouldn't be like as strong as they assume to be.
Okay. Very, very interesting. I've really enjoyed talking to you, Hala, today, and hearing about your experience and your journey, which I think it's been great. I think you've really you've developed in such a way that is quite a model, I think, in education, from teacher, very quickly from teacher trainer to academic manager, etc. And I think a lot of what you've said will resonate and be useful for the teachers to hear. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed talking to you and answering those questions, sharing my experience. And I think that it's a great opportunity for people from different countries all over the world to like speak about their experiences with you and share them with other educators from different countries as well. So thank you very much for this great opportunity. I really, really enjoyed my time, and maybe we can do it again.
Definitely. Yeah, it's been a pleasure talking to you, Hala, and good luck with the publication of your next novel as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot.
It's time for a fresh start to language learning. Pearson EdXL's new student-centered French, German and Spanish 2024 GCSEs cater to the needs of all learners, regardless of their background, ability or reason for studying. Rooted in learned language, their assessments are transparent and accessible, allowing all students to showcase their language skills. Through inclusive and relatable content, the new Pearson EdXL MFL GCS build a shared cultural capital that helps students develop an understanding of and appreciation for the wider world. Find out more at go.pearson.com/MFL GCSE 24.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News.
BBC News reports on GCSE results and the impact resits in English and Maths could have on post-16 providers. According to figures it has published on the news website, over 167,000 pupils in England received grade 3 or below in maths, whilst 172,000 failed English language. The number of pupils not achieving grade 4 in English language is highest for a decade. The Association of Colleges has estimated that the extra GCSE resits could cost around £16 million for the year, and highlighted the yo-yo effect the pandemic has had on resits, making planning a huge challenge. Julie McCulloch of Education Askell said resits were demoralising for students and reform of English and Maths qualifications was badly needed. Last year, only 20% of those retaking a Maths GCSE achieved grade 4 or above. The BBC also reported on GCSE pass rates in England, Wales and Northern Ireland as falling. The drop was steepest in England, but in Wales and Northern Ireland, grades were always meant to be higher. Analysis on the news website also indicates that in England, the gap between regions' lowest and highest proportions of GCSE passes has grown, and that state schools had a steeper fall in pass rates than in private schools. Schools Week features a story on A-level results and the widening attainment gap between North and South. According to data published on its website, The North East now has the lowest proportion of A star and A grades, lower than pre-pandemic levels, at 22%. At the same time, London and the South East have recorded the biggest rises when compared to 2019. Labour's Shadow Schools Minister said the results showed the failure of the government's levelling up agenda. The article discusses a range of factors which could contribute to the disparity across the best and worst performing regions, including existing long-term deprivation exacerbated by the pandemic, food insecurity made worse by the cost of living crisis, and more usual factors such as attendance, device access, and the use of catch-up schemes. Full details can be found on the Schools Week website. The Guardian also takes a look at academic outcomes for pupils, this time through the lens of those referred to social services during childhood. It states that this suggests these pupils are twice as likely to fail GCSE Maths and English than other pupils. Data from a 3-year period found 53% of teens who had been referred to social care did not achieve a grade 4 pass in both the GCSE subjects. This is in contrast to 24% in those not subject to a referral. The analysis was carried out by the charity Action for Children. It is the first study to examine data for children with a referral rather than just those who receive support. Around 318,000 children a year are referred to social care, although many do not meet thresholds to receive support. The Guardian also featured comments from school leaders on the impact high levels of absence and poor mental health of pupils have had on outcomes for some. Many cited a lack of formal support for pupils and their families, contributing to further strains on school staff as they tried to plug gaps usually filled by other services such as social care and the NHS. On from its examination of regional disparity in academic outcomes in regions, Schools Week also reports on proposals for elite sixth forms being given the go-ahead. The Eton Star 16 to 19 free schools, a collaboration between Eton College and Star Academies, will open in Dudley, Teesside and Oldham. This is part of the 15 new free schools announced by government in the last week. The aim is to improve education standards and get more pupils from the North and Midlands to Oxbridge. The Sixth Form Colleges Association has, however, warned that more sixth forms could lead to existing high-performing provision being unnecessarily disrupted. Eton College will provide financial and extracurricular support through its partnership with STAR. Education Secretary Gillian Keegan commented on the 15 new schools, saying, "We want to make good school places available to families." The 15 schools also include 2 new university technology colleges, the first to be approved in 5 years, Brit School North to be opened in Bradford. The sixth form sector has reacted to the new plans, saying that in the 55 education investment areas, there are already enough colleges and school sixth forms in the areas to meet need. This has been your Teachers Talk Radio News with Joe Fox.
Welcome back, everyone, and this brings us to the end of today's show. Thank you very much to today's special guest, Hala Al-Matari, and all of you who joined us live. And so that's it from me for this week. There are Teachers Talk radio shows all week on all manner of interesting topics, so please listen in live or to the recordings. I hope you will join me again soon. Bye for now.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing you next time. Teachers Talk Radio.